Good morning, listeners, and welcome to another edition of Money Talks here on Radio Kidnappers. This is Stephen Diedrichs from Taxile, your local, national, and national accounting practice based out in Hastings. I'd just like to start off by saying a great thanks and appreciation to Ken and Jill here at Radio Kidnappers for putting the show together, and our sponsors for helping us get by. So this week we're going to touch on our economy and some suggested ways we can protect ourselves financially in this new world of COVID and its variants. So firstly, I'm an accountant, so I'm not a scientist, and I'm not going to be giving the medical profession and economists a bad rap for the way things were handled during COVID. When we first heard about it in November 2019, it was probably around before then, but we only really heard about it towards the end of the year in 2019. So as was pointed out by James Rickards in his latest book, The New Great Depression, scientists and economists mostly, did their work under good faith. They were under duress with the suddenness of the virus and the amount of deaths that there were. So I have great respect for scientists and economists for all the things that they did at that point in time. And especially the way we handled things here in New Zealand. Whatever views people have, I still think that our leaders did the best with the available information, so we should never forget that. So I'll be sharing some ways we can use to better protect ourselves financially, and those suggestions you should discuss with your financial planner. So I'm not a financial planner, and it's and that's important because there's no one size fits all. We are all individuals and have individual financial situations and needs, and our health is also individual. So we should be talking with our financial planner when we put financial plans in place. And I mentioned James Rickards, so some of our views come from some of his work that I've read, and also Robert and Kim Kiyosaki, and some of the work that things that I've read of what they've written, and also my own experiences. So they don't endorse the program or anything like that, but I would recommend their research if in your study of finances. So so when COVID arrived in really in March 2020, when we went into a lockdown, this lockdown had health and financial implications for everyone. From a health perspective, you could argue that the lockdown stopped the virus from spreading at that time. So that's a good thing. There's also the other question about the health effects of having a lockdown, but I will leave that answer to the scientists to work out to see whether that was the correct decision to take. And keep in mind again that our government made the best decision with the information that they had. So they did step in and provided us as individuals and businesses with lots of support, such as wage subsidies, assistance to businesses with banks, small business loans, and most of us are across that, so we're not going to go into that now. But what I just want to share is that, and this can be a bit tricky, is when people think of, there's a difficult economic situation and was caused by COVID, it's I don't think it's quite that quite correct in thinking that way, because yes, we still have COVID-19 and all its variants, but diseases can cause pandemics. diseases doesn't cause a economic meltdown or make bad economic decisions. So that's something to keep in mind. And I just want to follow that up again with saying that that's not saying that what the government did financially was wrong. It's just they did what they thought was the best thing at that point in time, and I agree with what they did. But it's important to keep in mind that the virus didn't cause the economic situation. The virus just caused the pandemic. So that's important to note. Right, and also it's if you think back, there's been references made to the Spanish flu when that happened. So at that time, they carried off some 40 million people, which is basically at that time was about 2% of humanity way back when it happened, which in today's times is the equivalent to more than 150 million people. Now, at the time of the Spanish flu, there wasn't a wreck in the economy. People kind of just, by necessity, just did what they did and continued with their lives and somehow got through with it. And yes, a lot of people died and much more people lived. So I'm not pointing that out to say that we shouldn't have lockdowns or anything. Just pointing that out again to refer back to the COVID causes a pandemic. The financial and economic effects of that's made by our decisions, right? So it's important to keep that in mind. And if we look at what was done in other countries, like the US, for example, where they had some countries, some states going into lockdown and some did not, then it's, well, as you've seen on the news already, newspapers, it's a bit of a mess at the moment, so we'll leave that at that. But I'll point out to a Wall Street Journal article which was published in November in that particular article, it was pointed out that places like Finland and Norway, they had a lockdown, and then they also had border controls. So, and they did really well, and I think that is similar to what we did in New Zealand with the lockdown, and we have good border controls. So that is a good thing. Now, I guess I could go back to the US again, and there's also in the UK where they're in lockdown at the moment. There's been some frustration among the population there with just the way things have been handled and being in lockdown for such a long time, and it's also causing an economic issues for those countries and their people. So now. Just focusing again on the economic cost of a lockdown, right? So what's I think what we need to focus on is basically is ourselves, and look at where we are and where we stand personally, right? Well, we know we've got our government and they'll do what needs to be done, but if we look at ourselves personally and we look at, okay, this is where our finances were pre-COVID, right? Now, for some of us, during lockdown and after lockdown, we may have had to dig into our finances. Some of us may have depleted our finances. For some of us, there may still be some left, and some of us may be in a better position. Well, not better position, but some may be in a better position, and some may still have the finances that they had pre-COVID. So that's just what it is, right? So it's important to know that, and to also then keep in mind that we're never going to go back to the way we were before lockdown. As you know, there's been this South African variant of lockdown. So we went to lockdown in March 2020. Then later, parts of Auckland went back into lockdown for a short period of time. And then we have the South African variant in New Zealand, and luckily we didn't have to go into lockdown again. But that just shows that over time, we can still, there's a potential for us still to go into lockdown. So there's a need to look at ourselves and see how we stand financially as well. For me, I take it for granted that we all know that we have to look after our health. So I'm focusing here on finances because, well, that's my area. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor or a scientist. So I take it as a given that we know we've got to focus on our health. But going back to the potential for another lockdown to happen. So, look, our border controls, I believe they're doing a great job. The people are out there every day putting themselves at risk with people coming through our borders, and our border control people are, putting people in isolation and all that, which is what they should be doing. So they're doing a great job. But the one thing to keep in mind is that we're dealing with a virus, right? And if we have, if we go back to the US and their immediate past president, right? So I think we can all agree that he and his family had the best protection that money could buy, but yet he and his wife got COVID, and luckily thankfully they recovered, which is good. I don't care which political side you take, but I'm still happy that people recover from COVID. If we take that also further, we can look at the Prime Minister of the UK, right? Also got COVID, and thankfully he recovered as well. And again, those are people that have the best protections around them, 24/7. So for me, the message in that is that yes, we got great border protections and we're doing the right thing, but the virus doesn't really give a damn. It doesn't care if you're the president or the janitor. If it's going to infect you, it doesn't care. It's going to infect you. So, and that's just what it is. And so for us individually, we need to recognize that this is the situation. Then we need to go to our finances and see if we, employees, right? People have spoken about employees in the news and things before, so I'm not going to go there. Because basically we're across that. But this, contractors, for example, if you are a contractor and suddenly by email or a telephone call, the person that you thought you had a job with calls up and says, sorry, business is just not doing well, I have to cancel my contract with you, or, that's it. As a contractor, you've lost that one source of income. So how do you replace it? It's basically similar to an employee, but you get the point, right? So you've got to just keep things like that in mind, right? Now, so how do we work on ourselves financially to protect ourselves? For me, the first thing is to educate ourselves, and that's always the first thing, so that we can make good decisions. And again, I'm not a financial planner, so talk with your financial planner on your situation and what's best for you to do. One of the ways we can educate ourselves is by looking at our economy. And when I say our economy, I don't mean New Zealand. All right, yes, we do look at New Zealand, but that's not the first place we look. The first place we look is our economy, our personal finances, and suggest that we look at our income over the next 12 months, right? What assets we have that we can liquidate quickly if we need to liquidate it, right? And how you're going to liquidate it, that's also very important. And excuse me. So we work out how much money we will also need for a 12-month period. And I know people say, yeah, try and keep money for 3 months or 6 months. So, you can do that if you wish. But I think 12 months is a good idea, especially if you really don't know what's going to happen and you're dealing with a particular virus that, doesn't really care who it infects. And if there could be variants of it, I think the longer period of time you have money the better we will be off. So, and then we also look at our expenses, and I'm just going to talk about the expenses and the period of time that we need money for, because that's very important, and it also has to deal with the definition of wealth. So let's just say, for example, that our monthly expenses is $4,000 a month, right? I'm just picking that number randomly, okay? So $4,000 a month. So we may say that as long as we continue to work, we can pay our expenses, our monthly expenses, $4,000. Everything is good, and we think we've got a certain amount of wealth. Now, I don't think that's wealth at all, because I think it's the wrong definition of wealth, because that definition of wealth is based on money, which is not the definition of wealth. And so, for example, if you lose your job, then you can't pay that $4,000 monthly expenses, then all of a sudden, like, you got no wealth, right? But if you're looking at your 12-month income, if you're looking at how much money you need for a 12-month period, and all of a sudden, like, you lose an income stream, or your income for that $4,000 per month, but you know you've got money set aside where you can pay your expenses for the next 12 months. Now, that is wealth, because your wealth is then measured over time. So your wealth is 12 months, because you've got 12 months to get yourself back on your feet, because you've managed to put aside 12 months worth of expenses. So your wealth is then measured in time in that 12 months. So you could say, if you've managed to save up for 10 months, your wealth is then 10 months. If you've managed to save up for 18 months, your wealth is 18 months, because it gives you the time to get yourself on your feet, decide what you're going to do next, and then move on with that plan. So that's very important. And I used 12 months because I thought if I were going to say 24 months or longer, then it may turn some people off, or it may become too complicated for people. But yeah, so look at your finances over a 12-month period. That'd be good. The other thing that I find is extremely important is females. In a relationship, or people living together, in general, and this is a general view, right, that the male tends to deal with the finances, and the woman in the family, the wife, just kind of comes along. I suggest, or this would be the few recommendations that I make. I recommend that the wife, or even if it's just a same-sex couple, the one that doesn't particularly deal with the finances, I recommend that they get involved in the finances, especially today, with, we never know what's going to happen. And I'll give an example. I was listening to a show on YouTube about it was a UK finance documentary, and the husband was found dead. He had jumped in front of a train, and the only clue that they had was next to the railway line was a plastic bag of credit cards and bills that were overdue, and notices, no reminder notices. That was the only clue that they had as to why the gentleman would have jumped in front of the train. It was the first time his wife also found out about all these debts and things. She had known that if she asked for something, you would sometimes say no, because we've got to pay the gas bill, or something else, but she didn't know the true extent of things. So getting involved with your partner in the finances, right? And I'm not blaming the other partner or the wives for not getting involved or anything like that. So don't get me wrong here, right? I'm just recommending that they do. For one, it reduces the stress on the husband or the partner that's dealing with the finances, because there's somebody there that actually they can talk to freely, and someone else that also knows, okay, this is what's going on, and which is a great thing. And also, two heads are better than one. And from a relationship point, it could bring you guys together, or finances that could break you guys, put you guys apart. But you'll work together, and things will be better that way. So, and if anything else, the other partner does get to know the finances more, and that's very important, and also how things work. So that's that'd be one of the only recommendations that I make here. So the other thing is just read books. There's many books about money and finances and how to get started. And if you think that, look, I'm just too busy, you have to drive the kids to school, there's after school activities, make dinner, and at work you're tired, sit in traffic, there's podcasts. You can listen to podcasts, so that's something good. You could also attend educational seminars if you wish. Some of them are free, some you have to pay for. So just do some research before you go and pay for any investment seminar or educational seminar. That's available to you. Read financial papers and financial magazines as to what's happening around the country. Just if you want to invest, you could check out with. Have a look at the industry. There could be, could subscribe to the industry for industry newsletters, talk to other investors or people in the industry. So those are things that you can do. You can also, going back to the 12-month thing I spoke about before, but continue to update your projections as to where you want to go, because sometimes a particular month, you may need 4 new tires for your car, so what you budgeted for is just not happening because you need the tires. So life just happens. So just continually update and monitor things. And then if you're investing, again, check with your financial planner, but diversify across industries, not just one industry. And for example, I think if you've listened to this show before, I've mentioned before that sometimes people diversify within the stock market. And they think they diversify. Well, that's diversifying within a particular industry to me. You want to diversify if you're in the stock market in that, and then you maybe want to keep some money in property or commodities, just gold or silver, some in cash. But again, you need to talk to your financial planner about that, but diversify across industries. Right. So, and then I'm getting a bit of a wind up, but I just want to end on this, right? That keep the reality, right? Because there's, like in accounting, especially in auditing, there's a thing called the expectation gap. Right? But just always look at the reality, because the stock market go up and the property prices go up, and you're thinking, what the heck is going on? Do your research and make your own decisions with that. And then talk to your financial planner, because if you do a research and you've spoken with your financial planner and you can't find any real reasons to you as to why, say, property prices are high or the stock market is high, always keep in mind that at the end of the day, reality is going to win out over whatever sensations people have. Reality is going to win out always. So just keep that in mind. So just finally, in our new world that we have with COVID, just try and keep our health as best as we can, and keep our financial house in order, because at the end of the day, the government can only help us so much. And they can only borrow so much money. but we have to do our part in helping them by looking after our personal finances. So this is Stephen Diedrichs from Taxile. Thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you.